In this edition, we have a small review of an interview with the great actor Levan Cliff. We will show the personality, many anecdotes, and other characteristics of this unique character of the spaghetti western. Do you remember the famous movie The Good, The Bad, and the Ugly, where this famous actor shares the limelight with Clint Eastwood? We are going to talk about himself today. Interview. According to research found in the book Bad at the Billu by William Horner, it's part of his chapter on Levan Cliff. It's a great story of movie villains. But first we will talk a little about this artist. Her name is Pilar Clarence Leroy Levan Cliff, Jr., and she was born in Summerville, New Jersey, January 9th, 1925. Without taking up any more time, we will go into the interview in which William Horner shows in his book. Levan Cliff did not see his work as a series of violent spectacles. His naval service in both theaters of World War II undoubtedly provided numerous models for some of his roles and on-screen tests. However, instead of his films being an extension of the combat experience, he categorized them primarily as outdoor adventures. Here begins our fascinating investigation, where the actor talks about his life. I think perhaps the only resource I have about preparatory work goes back to my childhood, because most of the films I make are outdoor in nature. I grew up outdoors. I took my first canoe trip when I was 2 years old. My dad and mom took me upstream on the Raritan River, and I'm squatting in the middle of a canoe. I can still remember that. Since then, I went to camps and all those things that a child goes through in childhood. I was a Boy Scout. I didn't get to ego because I was too busy swimming, saving lives, and archery, things of that nature, and coaching other guys in the same area instead of paying attention to my own advancement. But I never left the forest, so to speak. I worked on farms after the war. One of the first jobs I had when I got out of the Navy was working at a hunting and fishing camp in Maine. So, your experience in Summerville, New Jersey, where you were born, was it farming? Agriculture? Yes. But when my 3 children started coming into the world, my first wife and I just didn't have enough money. So I had to go to work where there was more money than on a farm. So I went to work in a plant, believe it or not, as an analyst of methods of studying time and motion. I had never said I would work indoors in my life. I swore I wouldn't, but I did. How did you become an actor? It was accidental. There was a guy there who said to me, "Come to the countryside in Clinton, New Jersey," which is kind of the home of the small theater. So one night I went out with him and tried for a role, and damn, I didn't make it. And that thing was George in Our Town. The second one I did was Joe Pendleton, the boxer in Heaven Can Wait. The director of Heaven Can Wait took me to New York to see if I should start studying drama, because he had, good thoughts about me. I said, "Oh, come on," because I didn't have acting as a profession in mind. Anyway, I went to New York with him to see Maynard Morris at the MCA office, and he sent me to the Albin Theater on 52nd Street. There were about 500 guys in front of me, but damn it if I didn't end up with a role. In Mr. Roberts. From one plan I made, I just changed my whole lifestyle. He was in the National Company. I didn't play it in New York. We rehearsed it there, and Hank Fonda joined us, which made our company #1. And I played at Mr. Roberts while on tour for 15 months. Then we came here. Producer Stanley Kramer sent me a telegram. I went for an interview, and I went into Hannum. That was my first show. Since you had been worse, I guess you were already a writer, right? No, not really, Van Clief said, because they weren't horses in Summerville. They were tractors and trucks on the farm. I didn't know anything about a horse until I got into the movies. As soon as I knew I was going to be in Hannum when I came here to California, then I got a guy who was in the play with me to go to an editing center, and he taught me everything he knew at the time. We went out every bloody day from the beginning of August until September 15th, 1951, when I started working. He had me doing all sorts of things, riding, dismounting, running, walking, or any other damn thing on horseback. I was finally able to get the job done right in Hannum, and that guy who made me ride a horse is named Rance Hall, Ronnie Clint Hall's father. Did you do a lot of formal studies associated with the performing arts while you were in theater? Sharpen my tools. That's how I like to say it. I haven't studied Shakespeare because I don't like the Shakespearean style, But I have studied swords, dance, voice, all the physical things that I have studied and found that I needed. Was this with the American Academy? He didn't command with any academy, only on my own. I went to people who knew the subject and took private lessons. Don't you think that formal study, training in it, method, and so on are important to be a good actor? I don't believe in what they call a method of action. I don't know, he said, choosing his words carefully. I don't believe in that. It might be good for some actors, but it's not good for me. As far as I'm concerned, the acting method confuses the audience more than it tells them anything, and I think if you entertain them, instead of confusing them, you'd get better results. Acting is a twisted topic. I think projecting yourself into another dimension and then creating dimensions within the dimensions. I think it's an art form just like music or painting or anything else. In many of those European films, for example, I've made a lot of changes to my own dialogue just to make it more compatible with my way of speaking and my patterns. Let's say, he has never changed his ideas, only the way he says them or carries them out. How did that old stereotype of the villain begin? Was it Han Yun's gunman that locked you in the place? You are right. It started with Han Yun, and that was it. You were one of the heaviest in Hollywood for the entire time your 3 children grew up. How did you handle that? They handled it beautifully. Beautiful. There was no problem. Was Dad always a hero when he got home? I like to think so. But sometimes I wasn't even here for them. I was away for a job. He wasn't a nuisance at home, but he wasn't a hero. I don't pretend to be a hero, anywhere except maybe in the movies. I believe in other dimensions. Now, my children during those early years, was the thug chain completely intact? Oh, no. I did other things, but they were never too recognized. For example, I was a guest star on The Merrick, that show that starred Deadpool. I played a doctor in an episode called, I think, Day 10, about the plague epidemic in Los Angeles back in the 30s. They're kind of proud of what I did, so everything went well. How did you manage to project such atrocious characters during those years? Most of them apparently motivated by an invincible evil? This movie Pussy from Hell. I despise that movie for some reason. I don't know exactly why, but every time they put it on TV, I turn it off. But I liked others. In fact, I have no other that I don't like. If you want to see a guy on his knees begging for mercy, I did a movie called The Bravados with Gregory Peck, Henry Silver, Stephen Boyle, a lot of good ones in that one, where I was going to catch Peck, but he came from the other direction, pointed his gun at me. There was nothing he could do. In the movie The Bravados, for me, that could have been your best performance. It was probably the first time I took pity on a bad guy about to kill me. I was impressed. Something that had always seemed like a totally appropriate action beforehand. That's what I look for in cinema. A place where you can feel a little sympathy, not pity, but sympathy, so that the audience feels that they are almost as much on your side as on the protagonists. Once I knew what I was doing, that I only took a photo or two, I tried to find an extra dimension for each character, a sympathetic area. Now, right or wrong, I've done it all these years. You did that on the good, the ugly, and the bad. That was done by a specialist, not me, because I refused to do it. The girl wanted to be slapped. She was actually slapped. I'm 6 feet 2 inches, weigh about 190 to 200 pounds. I'm pretty well armed. I have a strong hand, and I don't like to do things that could hurt someone in any way. When playing the villain, is there anything special you consciously do to act maliciously in a role? No, I just believe in what I'm doing and I respect the other, and I have to do it that way. It's as simple as that. He plays 3 guys, myself, the character I've read, and the last guy on the balcony looking at him. It's like being in 3 places at once. It's you. You're playing the character. As a villain. Have you ever seen yourself in a pedagogical role, that by the way you presented your character, you could divert young people into that kind of person and the bad things that they were doing? I think that's a really good way to put it. I've felt that the hero in a picture, if it's me, I want it to be a little bit of both sides, but if it's someone else, let's say Gene Audrey or Jack Mahoney, Rogers, or whoever you want to say, anything I did as heavy, I made as heavy as I could, then the other guy is a lot stronger. And that's how it should be, because he has to win in the end. You know it. You need to be as strong as possible in a fight scene or a shootout or whatever, in order for the other to come out properly. Although I still tried sometimes to have a moment of sympathy when doing the thing. I did the same as a hero. I played as hard as possible. I am in no way against violence if it is justified. I've played the bad guy and I've enjoyed playing the bad guy, but let justification bring me down. Or cheer me up in case I'm the hero. What was your longest period without work? That's a good question. I don't know exactly how long that period lasted, but I think the worst one I had was just before the arrival of Italian Westerns. And how did they come about? Question. What led you to make films there? Money. I'll admit it. He was broke. I couldn't afford the phone bill, and it wasn't that big. I was offered more money than I had ever made for any movie, and that's what started it all. But it's still, whether it's here, Israel, the Canary Islands, Spain, Italy, Yugoslavia, it doesn't matter at all where they're made. It's an international business. Eventually, everyone will see what you do, and that's the point. That name, Angel Eyes, in the good, the ugly, and the bad, was tailor-made specifically for you.